Everyone thinks they know the story. Jesus died on the cross. They put him in a tomb. 3 days later, he rose again. End of story. Easter Sunday, chocolate eggs, empty tomb, hallelujah. But what if I told you that the most important part of the entire story isn't the crucifixion, and it isn't the resurrection either. It's the part in between. Those 3 days. Those hidden, silent, mysterious 3 days that almost nobody talks about. The part most Christians skip over. The part most sermons avoid. The part that ancient texts describe in ways that will absolutely shake you if you're willing to go there. Because here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school. Jesus didn't just lie in a tomb for 3 days waiting to come back to life. He wasn't dormant. He wasn't simply gone. Something was happening. Something massive. Something cosmic. Something that shook the foundations of the spiritual world in ways we can barely comprehend. And today, we're going to go there. Into the dark, into the silence, into those 3 days. If you've ever wondered what death actually is, if you've ever sat in grief and thought, where are they? Where do people go? Then this is for you, because the answer might be buried in the most overlooked 3 days in all of human history. Let's begin. It's Friday afternoon. The sky has gone dark over Jerusalem. Not metaphorically dark. Literally dark. The Gospel of Luke says darkness fell over the whole land for 3 hours. Historians have tried to explain this for centuries. Solar eclipse, unusual weather, a sandstorm. But the people standing at the foot of that cross didn't need an explanation. They felt it. Something was wrong with the world. Something deeper than weather. Something had shifted. And then he breathed his last breath. It is finished, and Jesus died. The Roman soldiers confirmed it. A spear through his side, water and blood poured out. He was dead. Medically, physically, undeniably dead. His disciples hid behind locked doors. The women who followed him stood at a distance, weeping, unable to look away and unable to look directly at it either. The man they believed was the Son of God was dead. And then something strange happened to the world. The Gospel of Matthew records something almost everyone glosses over, something so bizarre that most people assume it's symbolic and move on. The moment Jesus died, the curtain in the temple tore in two, from top to bottom, not from the bottom up, as if something invisible, something enormous, reached down from above and tore it open. And that wasn't all. Matthew says the earth shook, the rocks split, and then, the part that makes scholars uncomfortable, tombs broke open. Bodies of holy people who had died were raised to life. After the resurrection of Jesus, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. Read that again. Dead people, walking around Jerusalem, appearing to people. What was happening? What had just been set in motion? This is where the story most people know ends. Jesus is dead. His body wrapped in linen, sealed in a borrowed tomb, a massive stone rolled across the entrance. Roman guards posted outside. The religious leaders satisfied. The threat, they believed, was over. But something was just beginning. Now here's where the mystery deepens. And I want you to really sit with this. When we say 3 days, what do we actually mean? Jesus was crucified on Friday. He was raised on Sunday morning. By modern counting, that's barely 36 to 40 hours, not even 2 full days. So why does every source, the Gospels, Paul, the ancient creeds, insist on 3 days? Some explain this with ancient counting methods. The Jewish way included partial days. Friday counts as day 1. Saturday is day 2. Sunday is day 3. Fine. Reasonable. but I don't think that's why it matters. 3 is not an accident in the ancient world. 3 days is the period of transformation, the point of no return between life and death. Jewish tradition held that the soul lingered near the body for 3 days, hovering uncertain before finally departing. 3 days was the threshold, the border crossing, the point after which there was no going back. This wasn't just any death, and this wasn't just any 3 days. Something was happening in the realm beyond this world. And the question that haunts me, the question I want to take you into right now, is this. What was Jesus actually doing? The Apostles' Creed. One of the oldest statements of Christian belief in history. Most churches still recite it today. And buried inside it, between was crucified, dead, and buried, and on the 3rd day he rose again, there is a single haunting line. He descended into hell, or in older translations, he descended into the dead. 4 words, barely noticed, quickly passed over, but think about what they mean. Jesus went somewhere. Between death and resurrection, he didn't simply cease to exist. He descended. He went down, into something, into somewhere. The Greek word used is Hades, not the Christian concept of hell as eternal fire. That's a different word, Gehenna. Hades is the realm of the dead, the waiting place, the underworld, and the claim is this. Jesus went there. Why? That's the question. That's the mystery. And there are different answers, different interpretations, debated and whispered for 2,000 years. But let me tell you, the one that stops me cold every time. In the first letter of Peter, a letter most people don't spend much time in, there is a passage that is quietly, almost impossibly strange. Peter writes that Jesus was put to death in the body, but made alive in the spirit. And then, that in that spirit, Jesus went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits. Imprisoned spirits, he preached to them, in the realm of the dead. Now stop and let that image form in your mind. The realm of the dead, dark, vast, ancient, a place where souls have been waiting, some for decades, some for centuries, some for millennia, filled with the accumulated dead of all human history. And into that place descends Jesus, not as a victim, not stumbling in as a defeated man, but as a king entering conquered territory, as a warrior stepping onto a battlefield, as someone with every authority to do whatever he came to do. And he begins to speak. Now let me bring in something that most mainstream conversations about Easter completely ignore. In the ancient texts that didn't make it into the official biblical canon, texts like the Gospel of Nicodemus, there is an extraordinary scene. A scene of what happened in the realm of the dead the moment Jesus arrived. The text describes Hades as a place with gates, dark gates, gates of iron, and there is a moment of panic, of chaos, because something is coming that has never come before. The spirits of the dead cry out. Even Satan himself is alarmed. They can sense it. Something is different about this death. This soul is not like the others. And then the command comes. A voice, enormous like thunder. Lift up your gates, O rulers, and be lifted up, O everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Hades resists. Who is this King of glory? And then the gates are broken. Not opened, broken, shattered, and Jesus enters the realm of the dead, not as a prisoner, but as a conqueror. Now, that text isn't in the Bible, but here's what is. Psalm 107. He broke down the gates of bronze and cut through the bars of iron. Revelation 1. Jesus says, I am the living one. I was dead, and now look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades. Keys. He holds the keys. Keys you hold are keys you took from someone. Keys imply a door, a lock, a place of imprisonment, and a liberation. This is where the story shifts from mystery to something that feels like an earthquake in your soul. Because every human being who had ever lived had died under the shadow of something. The accumulated weight of every wrong thing humanity had ever done. And death, not as a biological fact, but as a spiritual power, had been collecting for thousands of years. Souls pouring into the realm of the dead like a river that never stops. But on that Friday afternoon, something different arrived. A soul that had no debt. A man who had never broken anything. A soul who had no obligation to be there, and yet came anyway. Why? Because the only way to break a power is to walk into its center and refuse to be controlled by it. The only way to defeat death from the inside is to enter it voluntarily. To step into the trap, knowing it's a trap, because you're so much more powerful than the trap that it cannot hold you. Death thought it had won. Death was wrong. The silence of Saturday. The disciples don't know yet what's happening. They're hiding, grieving, shattered. Saturday is the day of not knowing, the day of darkness before dawn. The longest day they ever lived. But in the realm beyond this world, that Saturday is anything but silent. Paul writes in Colossians that through the cross, Jesus disarmed the powers and authorities and made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them. Military language. The language of a general parading his defeated enemies through the streets. This is not passive. This is not quiet. And in Ephesians, Paul writes that Jesus descended to the lower earthly regions, then ascended, in order to fill the whole universe. Fill the whole universe. There is nowhere, no darkness, no depth, no realm of death that Jesus has not entered, has not walked through, has not claimed. This is not a small story. This is the largest thing that has ever happened in the history of all created existence. And then comes Sunday morning. Before dawn, the sky just beginning to lighten at the edges. The guards still posted, the stone still in place. Everything looks exactly as it did on Friday night. And then the earth shakes again. An angel descends, his appearance like lightning, his clothes white as snow. The Roman soldiers, trained men who feared nothing, shook and became like dead men. The stone was rolled away, not so Jesus could get out. He was already gone. The tomb was already empty. The stone was rolled away so the people coming to look could see he's not here. He was risen. But here's what I need you to understand, the part that breaks me open every time I sit with it. The resurrection of Jesus is not just a miracle that happened to one man in one tomb 2,000 years ago. If that's all it was, it would be remarkable. But it would be a historical curiosity. The resurrection of Jesus is a declaration about the entire universe. It is the announcement that death does not have the final word. Not for him. Not for you. Not for anyone connected to him. Paul says it in 1 Corinthians. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? Taunting death. After everything death did to the world, taunting it like a defeated enemy. Because that's exactly what it is. Now, I want to step out of the story and talk directly to you. Maybe you're going through something right now that feels exactly like Saturday. Not Friday. Friday is dramatic. You know what's happening. Not Sunday. Sunday is breakthrough. You can see what God was doing. Saturday is different. Saturday is the in-between, the silence, the waiting. where you don't know if the thing you're believing for is going to happen, where the dream feels dead, where the door closed and no new door has opened yet. Saturday is the hardest day to live in, but here's what those 3 days tell us. The silence is not emptiness. What looked like the grave was actually a war room. What looked like defeat was actually the most decisive victory in history, being won in a realm no human eye could see. The disciples on Saturday had no idea what was happening. They were watching the wrong realm. And maybe the thing you're grieving right now, the thing that looks finished, sealed behind a stone, something is happening there too, in the unseen, in the silence. I'm not promising you a specific outcome. You deserve honesty more than a script. But I am telling you this. The God who walked into death and walked back out is not absent from your Saturday. That God does not sleep. That God does not abandon people in the silence. That God enters the darkest places and refuses to leave empty-handed. So I want to ask you something real. What is the tomb in your life that you've given up on? What is the thing you stopped praying about because it seemed too dead, too sealed, too finished? What is the Saturday you've been living in? Not for 3 days, but for 3 months, or 3 years, because the story of those 3 days is not just ancient history. It's a pattern, a promise hidden inside the most dramatic event in human history, waiting to be found by every person who has ever sat in the silence and wondered if God forgot them. He didn't forget them. He was in the tomb with them. Jesus went into the place that swallows people whole and came back out. He entered the darkness that has no exit and made an exit. He went to the place everyone goes to and no one returns from, and returned. And when he came back, he still bore the wounds of the nails and the spear. Because his victory didn't erase what he suffered, it transformed it. The wounds became proof, the credentials of a man who went through hell, literally, and came back on the other side. That changes something, because if he can take the worst that death could do, absorb every ounce of it and walk out victorious, then nothing in your story is beyond redemption. No wound too deep, no failure too final, no tomb too sealed. He holds the keys, remember? And what was taken from death's hands in those 3 days was you. 2,000 years ago, in a garden tomb outside Jerusalem, in the early morning hours of Easter Sunday, a man who was dead opened his eyes, and the entire universe changed. The equation of human existence was rewritten. The final authority of death was broken. The locked door between this world and God was thrown open. Don't let those 3 days be something you just know about. Let them be something you feel. Let the weight of what happened in that silence land on you. Let the image of Jesus descending into the darkest place that exists, not as a victim, but as a king going to reclaim what was stolen. Let that image stay with you. Because you might be in a dark place right now. You might be in a Saturday. And if you are, the most powerful thing I can tell you is not a strategy or a self-help technique. It's this. The God of those 3 days is the God of your 3 days too. He descended, he fought, he won, he rose, and the invitation, the wildly, impossibly generous invitation, is that his resurrection is not just his, it's yours. If this video moved you, share it. Someone in your life might be in their own Saturday right now. Someone who needs to hear that the silence is not emptiness, that the tomb is not the end. And in the comments, tell me, what is your Saturday? What are you waiting for? What have you almost given up on? You don't have to be religious to feel the pull of this story. You just have to be human. You just have to have loved something. You just have to have felt the weight of silence.